Hey guys, Malkuth 1974 coming back at you for another episode of Let's Play Kerbal Space Program. We're going to be concentrating on the civilian space program again, and at this point we are going to be putting a civilian space station in low carbon orbit. The reason I want to do this is because my other space station is kind of in a higher plane. It's at 140, and it's really hard to get smaller vessels there just because it can't really reach there. Just like my SSTOs, they really can't. So if I put something in a lower orbit, so this right here is the core of the station, and it's gonna be a simple little station. It's not gonna be much. It's gonna have again, the only big part on this is the actual living quarters, which is a 2mm part. Everything else is 1mm part. I know I said I would only use 1mm parts, but unfortunately there is no other part for living stations other than the 2mm part in Kerbal Space Program. So yeah, that's why we are doing that. And we're trying to get up here. It's a simple rocket. It's actually, when I launched this was the first rocket I launched that was a normal rocket. I've been using SSTOs for quite a while for the civilian space program. I just didn't think they had the oomph to get these heavier payloads up there. This one's pretty simple. All I gotta do is actually detach it like that. Get it into space, circularize the orbit a little bit, and we'll be set to launch the next parts to this vessel. Another thing I've noticed when I was doing this particular video is that I've been using, when I do my monopropane or propane or whatever the hell it's called, and the little thrusters, I've been using only 3 thrusters instead of 4, and I find out later in the game that this is actually a bad idea. It makes it very difficult to get all your planes of movement out of that. I've never really noticed a problem with it before, but for some reason in this particular play session I was having all kinds of difficult issues trying to get this some of the other stages to line up with this ship. It actually caused a lot of problems, really. As you guys know, there's a lot of cool new mods out there. It was well before this one. The new B9 Aerospace version 2 is out. Oh man, does it look beautiful. Some of the cockpits that are in there. There's like 85 parts, and even though I like all the parts, I don't like all the parts. Not just because they look ugly, just because of the fact that now there's so many parts that it's hard to sift through everything, especially if you have other things. Now, actually, what we just noticed here is that right there, that little blue thing is a separator. And what happened is that the whole thing separated, but in between the separators is 2 docking ports. One's on the little tug there, and one's on the actual other end of the ship. And what ended up happening is that the 2 docking ports tried to connect to each other after the separator, and they kind of got stuck to each other. And I'm frantically here trying to free it, and it's not working. I can't figure out what the hell I'm supposed to do. I'm thinking that they're connected somehow, but they're not really connected because it's not giving me the option to undock. So eventually I come to the realization that maybe I should I'm actually also thinking that it's still one vessel, but it's actually 2 vessels right now. I can actually see I just switched like that. I switched between that vessel and I'm switching again. I'm like, why isn't this undocking? Well, yeah, we'll figure it out here. Eventually what I do is I go, well, I'm gonna end flight, see what happens. I'm hoping that I'm on the tug, which would have been just which I would have just deorbited anyway. So now I'm gonna go check it out. Oh, what I did is no, there was actually 3 vessels. Okay, there was the station core, the tug, and the separator was counting as a vessel. So what I did is I ended the game of the actual separator, which got rid of it, and now everything's separated. Now I'm looking at my tug, and I'm figuring out, whoops, I didn't add any batteries to the tug. I can't use it to help move things into position. So basically I have a dead ship right now. I'm trying to figure it out. Why can't I move nothing? And I'm like, what did I do wrong? I always do this. I always forget to add batteries or solar power or something like that, because of course when you are running a non-manned vessel, it has to have power or it will be useless. Just like this is useless. It's pretty awesome though. It's pretty awesome when you make mistakes. But we all do it. It happens. So let's just get to the second stage here. Launching the second stage of the vessel. This one's one of the heavier versions of it, and it's one of the most awkward versions, where I also did make that same mistake where I only added 3 of the actual propylene, or whatever the hell they call, monoprops, thrusters, which makes this thing an extremely difficult thing. Right now I'm just setting up an intercept on the core of the station, trying to get my vessel there. What I'm actually doing, what these are the fuel tanks that I'm going to be attaching to, that's going to hold most of the fuel tanks. And what I had to do to get this thing up here, because it was so heavy, was to actually transfer the fuel from the fuel tanks into the actual launch stage, or I would have never made it to space. So I was transferring fuel there, trying to do it at a rate where I'm not going to be in trouble. And there I go, I separate again. And we have to do the rest of the intercept towards the civilian space station core, and this is us coming up on the core. Of course, I had to adjust the lighting level here in the game, because of course I'm on the dark side of the moon, and I don't have any lights on this vessel, because I always forget. You guys know me, I always forget to add the lights. So we just upped it a little. That's why everything looks a little bit shiny or a little bit dull looking. It's just because I had to use the editor program to actually up the gamma and all that, and the brightness, and yeah, it's all good stuff. It's all good. But this is where I start having issues. So the connection of these two vessels is quite a pain in the ass, because I cannot get this thing to move on one of its axes, because I only have 3. If you actually look at my my thrusters there, you can see there's only 3 of them. They're actually doing anything. And I, you know, of course, me being me, I continue to make the same mistake over and over and over for each thing. So, yeah, lesson never learned from me on this. But I eventually do get this all connected up, hooked up. I tend to use the actual thruster a little bit on this, not the, the engine on this, to help connect this a little bit. And I'll keep switching back and forth. I cut a lot of stuff out just to make the video a little bit shorter. But, yeah, so we're just trying to get lined up. And then I'm trying to get there. And we miss. Because if you could tell, because I'm on a 3-axis system, what's going on is that I'm trying to turn my vessel to be a certain way, and the auto adjustment of the docking system is adjusting to make sure I keep the same heading. So what it's doing is actually pushing me off of where I want to be, because you can't if you saw what I did right there, I basically just thrustered it, and then I turned the other vessel in to make it go to the clamp, and we connected. So yeah, I just used the engine to actually connect our vessel, and now I'm opening up that. Now another part of the space station is up and running. We got one more part to add to this baby. What did I forget? That's right, we need lights. Need lights to light up the docking port and all that stuff. You can tell I got plenty of batteries on it. I got those new batteries on it. So this is right here. I'm going to show you guys how I actually build my space stations. And what I'm doing is I'm actually showing you the space station as it is right now in space. That's the whole space station without the solar panels. So what I want to do is I want to add another part to it, and I'm going to start building it. This is going to be the lighting system, so I'm just putting some struts in here and some towers. you know, doing symmetrical mode to get them all on there. These are going to hold lights that shine down on the station. Again, what you're looking at right now is the station that's actually in space right now. That's the fuel tanks. That's the living quarters and the docking node. And this is going to be the third part, which is going to be the lighting system. So, let's put this together. Oh, and I just read a developer blog saying how they are at this point developing flag planning for the game, and see how I just checking it out to see what I can and can't do. Now, of course, I'm not going to launch this whole thing into space. What I'm going to end up doing eventually... Oh, actually, what I'm doing right now is I'm testing it to see how the lights are going to work. And I got to do it really quick because it's not very stable. I want to see if the lights shine up, and you can tell that the whole thing's bending because it's not very supported at the top. It's way too heavy for that little tiny vessel. But I got to see the nice little bright light and what it did. So, let's move on. What are we moving on to? The launch. Here we go with the launch. This is the first launch. Now, I want you to pay attention to what I added to this. I actually added an arm. One of those Civilain arms. This thing is gonna give me the biggest headache on the planet, because not only am I dealing with only 3 thrusters, but now I have this strange arm that's hanging off the end that is totally counterbalancing any weight that I have. I tried to balance a little bit with that camera that you see on the other side. That's actually a camera. It's supposed to be wow, it's a camera mod. I don't even know where I got it from, but I just saw it in there and it was about the same weight as the Civilain arm, so I added it to it, just hoping that it would counter the weight, because I knew making it that arm was going to be an issue. So, we got it to space. Not going to go through the whole launch. Alright, so now we are actually trying to line up yet again with the station. And this was the most difficult one that I did. I've never had so much trouble trying to get a space station together than this one space station. But we will see how it goes here. Notice that I still have the arm on here, and we'll just keep that an idea. I'm like, oh, you know, this is actually getting really close, but it's still no cigar. Because I just can't. You would think I'd put the engine on, and I do try to put the engine on every once in a while to actually make it go forward. But it's like I have bad luck, and I completely miss it by a mile. And at this point, I'm thinking I'm going to destroy the space station, but nah, I stop it, back it up, keep backing it up. Don't hit nothing, because it'll break it. Easily can break docking ports by sliding them like that. So I'm trying to stay away. Eventually I get the idea that, you know what, I have an arm on this thing. Why don't I use the arm to actually hook this thing up to the thing? And, you know, I've never actually used this arm before, but let's hook it up. Connect it in there. Bam! Now we're one vessel. I could keep it like this and we can have this weird looking vessel. But no, it's not quite what it's supposed to look like, so we are not going to do that. And I'm thinking, this isn't going to work, is it? Because I can't get the arm bent enough to actually click this. It looks like it's pretty close there, but what's happening is that the arm has so much torque that it's actually moving the vessel away while I try to move it towards it. It's the most frustrating thing I've ever had to do in Kerbal Space Program, is to try to get this thing. I literally spent hours trying to get this thing to connect different ways, with using the arm and using the thrusters and using everything else. And this is just a small tidbit of the actual frustration I had trying to get this stupid ass station together. You can tell this is pretty much no, it's not gonna happen. This What I'm actually doing right now, if you guys can't see it and I have to fix it later, is I'm actually knocking my vessel out of orbit. Believe it or not, when I'll show you guys later. I don't think I showed it in the video of fixing it, but I noticed it eventually, and yeah. So basically, just imagine right now, I am basically knocking this vessel completely out of its low orbit. Remember, it's probably about at 80 kilometers or so, or 80 meters. And I managed to, through this whole thing, basically knock it out on one side, on its periapsis side, or whatever. It's always going to be the periapsis side because it's the lowest side. But the lowest end ends up going to about 68 meters, which, of course, if I never noticed it quick enough, would have been disastrous eventually on a few more orbits around Kerbal, and I would have had a deorbited space station that never was. But yeah, this is not working out very well. It's not working out very well at all. I'm getting frustrated. I say screw it. I'm gonna relaunch, and no arm, no nothing. Everything's balanced. I just want the space station together before I can have the stupid ass space station in space that my SSTOs can get to, and refuel, and all that magnificent stuff. So the glorious launch to space with the same part, other than the arm and the little camera thing, whatever that thing was. There we go. Trying to get a nice orbit set up again. You know, 90% of Kerbal space program is launching vessels. So, you know, when you watch videos, this is what we mostly see, because we're always launching new vessels into space. New things to do. There goes the space station right there. I'm thinking, unless that's not the space station. There's the debris of space station behind it. And just trying to get into orbit and then an intercept course with that space station. And of course, the one thing about a low Kerbal orbit is that the time acceleration can only go to 50 times x, which is, you know, in terms of gameplay and wanting to get things done quickly, is actually very, very slow. So that actually looks like it's behind me. So what I'm doing is I am setting up my my orbit to be just above space station. I don't know what that ship, I don't remember what that ship up in front of me is. So yeah, the space station's behind me because the debris is chasing the space station. There we go, we lose a bunch of stuff. I don't know if I fixed this on that or not, but eventually I get it there. It lines up, yeah, I must have fixed the thrusters on this one because it lined up much better this time. And there we go! A completely done civilian space station. It's gonna be named, what did I name the space station? I forgot. But anyway, so what you don't, I don't think I show it here. And luckily I have that, those thrusters on the, not the thrusters, but the engines on the back end of the light tower there. Because this is when I finally noticed that my vessel is actually, I'm kind of admiring it right now, but this is when I finally noticed that my vessel is actually going to deorbit because of all that trouble I had before I knocked it out of orbit. So eventually I actually fix it. I set it at about 84 meters, which is, you know, a pretty good distance. Most of my SSTOs can get to that without too many problems. Of course, there's no Kerbals on the space station yet, so we will have to launch a civilian program pretty soon to get them up there. But for now, this is Malkuth 1974. Hope you guys enjoyed. We'll see you later. Have a good one.